Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode on the Lessons from the Game podcast. And as usual, I'm joined with my co-host, Ben Pegna. And today's short form episode, we'll be talking about the preseason. We felt that this is fitting because a lot of you, as rugby players right now, have gone into preseason mode, whether you are professional or amateur or young rugby players getting ready for the new season. And I just spoke to Ben before that and I said, what a brilliant post he shared yesterday. And I thought, wow, let's deep dive into that. But before we get stuck into all of that, Ben, it's been a while. I haven't spoken to you in ages, my man. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you, bud. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. What about you, mate?
Oh, great, man. I think I need to visit, man. I need to come over there, so we can just reconnect a little bit in person. It's been too long.
I was
So,
working on that yesterday. I'll update you after when we catch up later. But I was working on some stuff for you to come over, and I don't want to announce too much about some workshops here. I think that's in order. We've spoken about it for a long time, and I'm getting hit up by people who want to do workshops. They want to host us for some sort of live or something
awesome.
like that. So high performance type of stuff and team building stuff, but also practical, coaching workshops.
Okay. So just to all our audience, all of everybody listening or watching, you probably have noticed we haven't done one of these short forms in a while. Ben and myself have been under the pump. Ben is launching some new projects as well. I'm starting a new journey as well, which is awesome. I'm super excited about that. We will talk about that at another stage, Ben, but enough about us. Young rugby players, aspiring rugby players, players that want to level up pre-season. This is probably one of the most important times of the year, and players tend to undervalue the importance of it. And we do see a lot of players, Ben, that sometimes are not engaged in preseason because they just want to have fun in games. They just want to play rugby. They just want to touch the ball. And I think the preseason is probably one of the most important times of your season to get yourself ready. But Ben, you shared a post yesterday. And I think if we can break it down a little bit, because there was quite a lot of principles and key focus points that you shared in this post. If you can break it down for us a little bit.
Yeah, so 100% pre-season is crucial. When you're addressing what you're going to achieve from pre-season, you need to first of all have reflected and reviewed your last season, so that you can say, okay, so you've done your off-season process, which for me, I talked about restoration, I talked about reviewing the season, and then rebuilding from there. And very much when I look at the preseason, I'm thinking, what have I reviewed and what's come out of that review? So you do this all the time. You and I do this after every episode of our podcast. We review. So for a player, that could look like, when did I perform best? When was I injured? Why was I injured? Did I have a good run of games? What did I excel at? Was I strong in this area? Wasn't I? Where could I up my game and level up? What areas was it mental? Was it physical? Was it a specific skill? And you've had a really good review. And then you need to filter that and then make a plan for your preseason. And we will talk a bit more detail about that. And then you can be really specific about how you address your preseason. And I talk about intentionality. I then talk about, okay, so what do I want to get from this specific session? That's what that means, that intentionality. So, for example, it might be G. If you and I are working together, and you come to me and you say, Ben, I'm working on this as my scrumming was like this. I wanted to, okay, and you will review and you will look at, okay, maybe if I was a bit stronger in the fight at scrum time, and I had a bit more muscle endurance and strength endurance, I would be able to stay in a 6 to 8 second scrum better, in this scenario, in the 60th minute of a game, and really be specific. And then we can then take that, put a plan in place and be intentional throughout that preseason.
No, it's brilliant, Ben. I think I wrote down earlier when we decided we're going to talk about the preseason, and it's basically similar to what you're saying: recover, reflect, and reset. And this applies to players, but it also applies to coaches as well. I'm finding myself in this journey right now. After 4 seasons at my former club, I had to take some time out. I needed some time to just just relax a little bit. I'm going to tell you this. Just reconnecting with friends, family, and loved ones just was unbelievable, Ben. And it's also given me time to reflect. Okay, what's the next step? How are we going to go? A lot of people ask me questions. All right, don't worry, I'll make that clear in the future. But at this moment right now, I'm just taking time, enjoying the time with the family, Ben. but having a time to reflect and revisit certain things and reset. I'm also in my preseason now as a coach, so I'm getting ready now to prepare for the next chapter, putting a lot of things on play. I'm starting to build my engine mentally and physically, which is great. And that's what rugby players need to know, that the preseason I wrote down here, and I think we're going to deep dive into now in terms of the plan. How do you approach your preseason? I believe for me, it's an opportunity to build your engine physically and mentally, because that sets you up for the rest of a season. What players need to understand, the importance of the preseason. Why do we need to get stuck in? Why do we get to really experience those dark moments where it's tough, where we really need to go dig deep in order to keep on moving forward? And sometimes we get mad at S&C coaches, think like, what is the purpose of this? We're not going to be doing this on the rugby field. We're not going to be doing squats or bench or bronco tests on a rugby field. It's not relevant, but it is, because you need to prepare your body so that it can have a strong level of endurance, so that you can become faster, you can become stronger, and that your body is capable of taking those collisions. But I can go on a tangent here, but I think that's most important, Ben. Players need to understand that preseason is important. And
100%.
That's where you start to build your mental armor, if you can put it that way.
Yeah, 100%. And we all have different approaches, and we all have it. Some of us love it and some of us don't like it at all. And it's very easy. If you stand back and you go, wow, this is 8 weeks or 6 weeks or 10 weeks, it's very daunting because you think 10 weeks. So there's different things I think you need to do. The first one is you need to have a target or a goal at the end of it of what you're trying to achieve. And you can break this down into your physical, your mental, your tactical, your technical. And then you can step back. So if it was you, using you as an example again, and we were just looking at the physical aspect of it, what we would do is you would say, Ben, I want to be in that fight for longer. I want to do isometric holds. I need to be stronger isometrically in that scrum. How can I get stronger? And we would consult with the S&C guys if we have that resource, or you and I, because you're an experienced pro, for example, we would say, okay, well, what's worked for you in the past? And you would say, okay, well, if I squat twice a week and I do this type of program and I increase my base strength, and then also I can do some isometric holds, or I can do some unilateral work, and I can do some straight leg deadlifts, and I can do more deadlifts, I find that I'm in the fight for longer and stronger at scrum time. And then we incorporate that into your target and goal. And then the P becomes what's the plan? What's the physical and skills-based plan that we can then write out and detail and journal. And when we do that, instead of it becoming an 8-week period you can't get your head around, we break it down week by week and session by session, and we bring that intentionality into that week and into every session. So you go, right, I'm excited about this session because today the focus is this, and I can really feel myself moving in the right direction if I do those things.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I like you use the word intention. I think that's so important, because a lot of players, and we've done this on previous podcasts where we told players, set your vision, be clear on your goals, be clear on what you want to achieve and who you want to become. And often players and people in general, we do our vision, but then it stays in the book somewhere, and you don't see it. That's why I'm a firm believer of having it on a whiteboard somewhere, put it against your wall, have it on your computer screen, have it as a background on your phone. You're constantly seeing that, but that it's clear for you where you need to go, and the intention is important. It takes me back, Ben, actually to 2010 preseason, or 2009, 2010 preseason. We spoke about the journey, the comeback. It's a story I tell a lot, but where I don't deep dive into quite a bit was the actual preseason building up to that big comeback of mine in 2010. I was clear on what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to get my spot back in the Springbok team, and identified key areas that I needed to work on. I needed to become stronger, fitter. My endurance levels had to increase. I knew I needed to have a point of difference above the rest. And back then, my competition was Tendai Matuarira, the beast, legend of Springbok rugby. And like you mentioned, I spoke to my S&C coaches. I knew that every session I was doing, whether it was a weight session, a mobility session, an extra fat burning session, or fitness session, it might have nothing to do with rugby or the scrum, but it was an opportunity for me to become better. It was an opportunity for me. And I'll be honest with you, I was pumped for every session. And some sessions were tough. Some sessions were harder than others. But because I was clear on my intentionality and what I wanted to achieve, it allowed me to get through it. And I think that is the most important. And I just made a note here, as Ben, that players need to trust the process. And I think once that plan is in place, you need to back it, because that plan was designed by people that you trust or yourself. You have done your own research and you've spoken to a lot of people. You've done your homework. So you got to trust the process. You just got to be 100%. Back in it. And Ben, funny story is that, as well, I shared it. We're coming back from South Africa. I came back with some extra baggage, came back with 4 or 5 kgs after all this lunch. And last week was actually my first full week of proper training after arriving. And did my weight move? No, not really. It's still the same. But I'm getting back into the routine of training almost every day. This week's a bit tough. Now you're in La Rochelle. So just getting ready, spending some time with my youngest daughter here, which is quite cool, my oldest as well. So it's a bit different this week. But we're doing activities. We are walking. We are cycling. We are running, which is brilliant. But you need to trust the process. And I think that is the key.
So good, G. So many things. If you have your eyes fixed on the end result, on that vision of what you're trying to achieve, but you own that, that becomes really real for you. I think that's really important. And I mean, to give you, just so people, you gloss over that. In 2010, you came back and you became, you were the South African Rugby Player of the Year. Yeah, and you implemented this, and I see this every day with the way you live your life as a person and as a coach. You're very, very good at this. So you take a vision of where you want to be, and then you break it down into bite-sized chunks, and then you take it day by day. You're a really good example of this. You model this behavior, and I think if we take a different example, so say someone's because we're all on these different journeys. I think the second thing about what you said there, you had a plan, but you owned that plan. You had intentionality in the plan. So there's be players and they'll be listening to this and they'll get given a program and you're going to improve. Don't get me wrong. If it says, if you go through the motions, you do 3 weight sessions a week for the next 6 weeks, you will, but there's a difference between going, I've reviewed and I'm going to own this. I know. So for example, if it's me and I'm thinking my left hand passing isn't very good, before the end of August, in 6 weeks time, I'm going to do 2,000 passes off my left hand. How am I going to do that? Okay, so on a Monday, I'm going to do 100. Wednesday, and I break it down. And each week, I feel that growth. I feel that, and that intentionality behind it. And then I change my passes. By week 2, I'm doing different passes. I get you to help me. You're moving around. At first, you're just a stationary target. Then, and it's just that intentionality. And I think guys and players and whatever we do in life, we need to own the process. And when you own the process and you apply yourself and you build those daily habits that allow you to incrementally, day by day, get better, that's when you see huge growth. And then you break into the team, or you become a mainstay in the team, or you become a consistent performer. And that's the difference I think we're talking about today.
And from a coaching point of view, Ben, what players also need to realize, coaches look at everything. Yes, maybe preseason, you might not be doing full-on rugby training yet. It will be full-on conditioning, full-on fitness, weights, and maybe some skills here and there. They look at everything. So if you're bailing out, if you're touching it, and there's one thing I hate, Ben, is when we're doing fitness tests, let's say a Bronco, you got guys touching short of the line.
And you're going to say that.
A lot of players might say 5 centimeters short. That was in your mind about what difference is. If you're willing to cheat yourself right there, and that moment, what's going to stop you in the game when you are tired and you just said, you know what, I'm just going to cruise. There's I'm stuffed. There's 20 minutes left of the game. I'm going to manage my efforts. How many players do that, managing in your efforts? Shame on you. You can't manage your efforts. And preseason is really an opportunity to test yourself, to build confidence, because if you can get through those tough times in preseason, and let's be honest, some of those sessions are ridiculous, which you do in preseason, and it's done with a reason. It's to prepare you, because when the stakes are high, when you're playing, and we saw that with Toulouse, to be honest with you, in the final, We saw that with Bordeaux. Time got extended, having that extra 20 minutes. It didn't look like Toulouse stepped off the pace at all. They were just so consistent through the whole game, where you could see there was a stage Bordeaux, they went hard, and at some stage they ran out of gas. Where Toulouse they were staying consistent, and when they had to attack, they had to. And I do believe it comes down to their physical preparation. Yes, the foundation was laid in the preseason, and also they had these little mini blocks where they could top it up, where they could work hard. And if we look at, I'll use another team as an example. Everybody is talking about the Springboks, Ben, of how amazing is they're playing well, they're playing hard, they're constantly changing the team. But what people don't know, the Springboks, some of us players had a mini preseason. Might not have been a full-on one, but they, I think, for about 2 weeks, these guys got drilled. I had the opportunity to spend some time with them in South Africa, and the players and the coach were like, listen, these guys went hard. And once again, it was about preparing them for those tough test matches, those devastating contact situations. Yes, Ben.
You made some great points there, G. And one of them, and underpins both with that Toulouse situation and with the Springboks, is consistency. So sometimes things don't go, so Stade Toulousain had knockbacks in the Europe, for example. They played the European competition, they have a knockback. But what happens? Do they throw everything out that they've done? Or do they panic? No, they have this consistency of approach. They keep backing the process, like you said. You don't just go, no, it didn't work. It's gone. We've gone slow. No, we stick to the process. We stick to what we know works. We have faith in who we are and what we're doing and this journey that we've embarked on. Same with the Springboks. People, they judge them on that first hit out, or they judge them on the second game. But actually, they know, okay, but if consistently, we've been training hard. We've done a mini pre-season now, so we're a bit fatigued. So when we taper and when everything comes together and we get the cohesion back again, then we'll go from here and we'll go from a 6 out of 10 to an 8 and 9 out of 10. And that's the difference, that consistent approach and that intentionality with it.
Just quick, Ben, because I don't want to stuff us up. If I understand, we had Anthony Watson on right in the beginning, and he mentioned something which he was taught by Francois Lowe, compound interest. If you can maybe give your version of the definition of compound interest, if you can maybe we are putting on the
in
spot
terms of like from nice, thanks, bro. Yeah. You mean like in terms of investing, or do you mean because
not in terms of investing, in terms of investing in yourself, in terms of your skill acquisition as a rugby player?
Yeah, I think you want to keep on building. When I think of it, I think of continually building. So I'm not taking 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. I'm thinking of not getting to the end of the season. It was a very old school approach where you'd get to the end of the season, you'd have 2 or 3 weeks off, do nothing, and then you go back to where you were. You do some off-season training, you'd get strong again in the gym, and then you atrophy throughout the season because you don't continue topping up and you don't maintain strength. And then you start all over again in the next pre-season when you've overcome a couple of injuries after that off-season period. Whereas what he's talking about is just incrementally getting better. So it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, but it's in this upward trajectory. People can't see my hand actually if they're listening, but basically there's an upward curve. But there's some dips, it undulates. It's never like a linear straight journey. There's downs, there's ups, and especially in the world of rugby and in football and in these professional sports where you get injured, where there's external factors that knock you. So you have to keep growing. And that's what I think he's referring to. And that's what I like to think about in that space.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it as well. I just wanted to make sure I didn't want to make a complete fool of myself. I know when it comes to those big words, skills acquisition and compound interest, you're our go-to guy. I'm just the prop. And the way I see it, Ben, and the way I'm talking about compound interest in preseason, I think you've touched base on it. If you are doing, let's say, 100 passes in 1 week, all right, week 2, that's 200, that's 300, that's 400, accumulates. It's the same if you are not a prop, just say a rugby player, doesn't matter what position. You're looking to add something to your arsenal or your box of tools because you're scrumming well, you're jumping in the lineouts, but you're looking for that point of difference, and you might have identified, okay, I want to focus and work on my jackal or my tackle technique. So if you are doing 30 jackals a week, after week 2 it's 60. it's 90, it's 120.
Yeah.
And just having, and it comes down to what we always say, and maybe that's a better way to visualize for our audience, that when we talk about consistent efforts, is those accumulating consistent efforts, which is important. At some stage, it will pay off. It's same like investing. If you're putting away money every single month, eventually it will pay off. It just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that's the most important. And I think we spoke about a lot about the plan and how important it is to stay on track and believe in the process. But I think it's also, we're talking about the physical preparation, the mental preparation, but I do believe it's an opportunity for players to work on their soft skills. You will be going hard rugby wise. We all know how it works in preseason. It's very condition orientated, but there's some windows that you can work on your soft skills. You can work on your tackle technique. You can work on your footwork as a ball carrier, and even your footwork before the actual tackle. A lot of players get it wrong. They get their foot positioning wrong. They get their head position wrong. So there are loads of things you can do on a weak passing, for example. So it can be part of a recovery, at the end of a session.
And that's that point of difference that I spoke about on the video that I did yesterday, the point of difference. So, for example, if you're really good at the breakdown and that's one of your skills, maybe you strengthen that and you become even better at that. Maybe it's actually something slightly different and you add another skill set to your armory. But that's recognizing from that review process as well. What do I need to add? What do I need to do different? What soft skills can I add? But 100%. Great point.
All right, Ben, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we sign it? Any last?
No, I mean, get at it. Yeah, I think enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. I think then it becomes something that you if you own it and you start saying, I'm going to enjoy this process, then it just takes on this, your growth will be exponential. And I'd love to hear people's thoughts and ideas and how it's going. Yeah, that'd be great.
Now, Ben, I think the biggest message I would like to leave to our audience, if you're a young rugby player, whether you're amateur or professional, attack. You need to go for it. All right? If you're clear on your vision, you're clear on your goals, there shouldn't be anything holding you back. And please be mindful as well. If you're in Europe, we all know it's summer, it's hot. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you're getting your sleep in. Get those little mini naps in, those micro siesta. If you can do that, non-sleep deep rest protocols is a great way to help you and encourage your recovery. So please do that. But most important, be aggressive with your goals. Don't hold back on that. Because at the end of the day, the only person you are going to disappoint is yourself. The last thing you want to do is being left out in that first block of the season because your efforts weren't good enough in the preseason. And I can tell you this, coaches look at players that are working hard. And if you're slagging behind, if you're a hooker and there's a prop running in front of you, there's something wrong, unless that prop is really fit. But what players don't understand is coaches look at everything. They look, actually, it's not so much about the fitness levels, Ben. It's like, how deep are you willing to dig? Are you capable of staying in that fight? And that's very important. But anyway, let's stop there because otherwise we're going to keep on going. I still need to go. I need to go to the butcher. I need to go buy some ribs. We got a barbecue tonight with my friends. So I need to slow cook them in the oven for 4.5 hours, 35 degrees. All right. And then finish them up on the braai or the barbecue, as everybody in the UK or in Europe says. But I think most important to our audience, please continue to follow, like, and subscribe our show, and please share it with your friends. If there's any feedback, leave a comment on YouTube, on Spotify, and also help us to improve the show. So if there's anything that we can do better, let us know. And if you do know of any unbelievable guest that would love to come on our show, please let us know. Ben, that's me. Any last thoughts? Nothing else to add?
Great, G. No, enjoy. You're making me hungry, mate. I've not eaten, so yeah, just go and get the ribs.
I'll send you photos, Ben. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.